Thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. A table in the presence of mine enemies. Do we have enemies? I'm not so sure we do. Do we perceive enemies? Yes, most certainly we do. Enemies are the things that make us anxious. Enemies are the things that make us fear. Enemies are the things that we would extrapolate from our own experience and from our own place in the world. Things that we would set outside the pale of our being and outside the pale of nature and say that these things are evil, these things are wrong, these things mean us harm. We all naturally, because we have a self, because we are incarnated in a separate individuality, a sentient awareness, we perceive things as being good or bad for us. And the things we perceive as bad are our enemies. We try to push them away. We try to avoid them. We try not to let them get the best of us or even to interact with them sometimes. But what this verse tells us is that in the midst of these crises, we are provided for. Not only in the midst, but at the very center of these crises we are provided for. Not on the outskirts. If we want to find sustenance and inspiration and stability and love and connection, we have to step right into the midst of our enemies, because that is where the table is set. That is where the table is. We will experience only lack and loss of love and fear and all of these other things if we don't go right to the center of that difficulty and abide there in trust. In trust. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou makest a table, settest the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. This anointing was a very joyful occasion in ancient times. Oil was precious. The anointing of the head, it gave a fragrance, it gave a feeling of comfort. It would soothe sunburn. It would calm and bless. So in the midst of all this, we are blessed. And our cup runneth over. We have actually more than we need and more than we can use in any given moment. We tend to think in very materialistic terms, but the breath itself is a cup that is running over. The breath of life within our body is a cup that literally overflows its bounds with every moment. It is emptied and filled and emptied and filled and is completely full. Each of us is given life in full measure, life to overflowing. The heart itself is a brimming cup that's constantly pouring out its love and its vitality and its concern to our very beings. This is a fountain, a cup running over that exists within us, within our bodies. Not one drop is lost, not one drop is added, and yet it is continuously overflowing its bounds. An internal river, shepherded by God and by the planet within the confines of our body, which itself is a kind of a small mirror-like ecology of the planet. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This is really the key of the whole psalm, especially to a green reading of the whole psalm. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Follow. Not lie ahead, but follow. We human beings are very peculiar creatures. Because we have free will, we imagine that we are in charge. We imagine that the world orders itself in accordance with our wishes and our acts, or that it should. We imagine that there are great things lying ahead of us. Human destiny, the idea of a human destiny separate from the planet, is the overriding delusion of all human beings for the past 12,000 years, maybe the past 70,000 years. The idea that there is a destiny for human beings as individuals and for a species that lies apart from this earth, apart from this planet. It's as futile an idea as the idea that you can go outside and pick up a stone off the ground and toss it so that it flies out of this world rather than falling back to the ground, reuniting with its mother, which is what it naturally does. Constantly consuming things, and we throw them over our back thinking that they exit the world, and they fall right back to earth. Okay, nothing goes anywhere, nothing comes from anywhere. It's all here. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me. Follow me. Goodness and mercy of the planet follow us because they are responsive to us. The planet is responsive, naturally responsive to our presence on it. It feeds us, cares for us, it gave rise to our life, it sustains our life from moment to moment. The sunlight, the air we breathe, the food we eat, the water we drink, everything being cycled through our bodies and cycled outside of our bodies through vast chains of being, of plants and animal lives, in a great circle that continuously feeds everything, eats everything, and is eaten by everything. All inclusive. And this follows us like a parent following behind a child, allowing the child to go ahead on the path and following behind. Parent doesn't lead. Parent follows. And the planet and God follows behind us, watching to see where we will go and what we will do, and accommodating it insofar as possible, insofar within the natural limits. Because every species has its beginning and every species has its end. Our end may either be imminent or it may lie a very, very long time in the future, depending on whether we're willing to look back over our shoulder and see the goodness and the mercy that are following us and see if we have departed from the path on which they lie. Goodness and mercy follow us. They've been following us now for millions of years as this transmission, this holy transmission of life has been handed down from individual and from species to species on the long green journey through time. The house of the Lord is not a cathedral, not a synagogue, not a palace, not a church. It's not a place. It is the place. The house of the Lord is the world. So surely goodness and mercy shall follow us all the days of our lives, and we will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That is true, regardless of what happens to us in the species, as a species, even as individuals. And so we will find ourselves dwelling in the house of the Lord forever. This is the house of the Lord. This is where we dwell, where we are cared for, where we are embraced, from which we can never become lost. That's my green reading of this Psalm 23. What I've found is that if you recite it with this knowledge in mind, there are a number of levels of comfort that this psalm provides. And it's famous for that. It's a very much a kind of a healing balm, this psalm. But there are levels within the psalm of relaxation and peace. And I do believe that this reading lies at a very, very deep level as far as inner peace is concerned. And if you recite the psalm very slowly and mindfully, word by word, it'll take a few minutes to do. And you will find that you get that deep, green, peaceful feeling from it.